Hi everybody, my name is Gonzalez and I'm adjunct professor of the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada, and I want to share my research about Quilcapampa La Antigua. I want to start with the knowledge to my family, Pedro Gonzalez, Ana La Rosa, Alexa Liza, and the directors of the Quilcapampa La Antigua, Dr. Justin Jennings and Willie Jeffes. Also to the organizers to the Oxford 13 EIU Symposium 399 for giving me the opportunity to share my research. Okay, we start. Quilcapampa La Antigua is a 70-hectare archaeological site that is 800 meters above sea level and 70 kilometers from the Pacific Ocean in southern Peru. It once hosted of the small Wari settlements and affiliated site with the influence from the early empire in the Andes, known as the Wari, originating from the neighboring Ayacucho provinces. Early excavation led by Eloy Linares Malaga in the 1960s uncovered high-quality Wari ceramics and architectural features, which led him to believe the site was a Wari military outpost tied to the border imperial expansion during the Middle Horizon. Later research, beginning in the 2013 by the direction of Willie Jeffes and Justin Jennings, confirms Wari presence but challenges that the idea that Quilcapampa was the imperial administrative hub. Instead, the site was small, briefly occupied, and far from the major Wari centers. Evidence suggests that settlement's founders were Ayacucho migrants who came not as conquerors, but likely as a part of the broader trend of the regional mobility motivated by kinship, opportunity, or other personal reasons rather than the state-driven colonization. While Wari influence was perceived in Arequipa, direct state control appears to have been limited. Quilcapampa was likely occupied over an extended period based on evidence of the thousands of stone petroglyphs directly associated with the site and the roads to reach it. The earliest impressions of Quilcapampa are a stark contrast. On one hand, a casual visit to the Middle Horizon section of the Quilcapampa quickly reveals three architectural features. The first is the raised plaza overlooking the site of the perch just above the petroglyph-filled cliff. The second feature is the dense block of the glutinate Patios are building just west to the plaza, organized by the long walls to separate the block into large compounds. The third feature is and the area of smaller, more diffuse Patio groups that form the semicircular around the denser block of the structures. Features 1 and 2 can be viewed as the core of the site, with the third feature as its outlying area. In this section, we describe how Quilcapampa core and the outlying area were constructed in order to demonstrate the general difference between these parts of the site in terms of masonry construction techniques and layout. The subsequent section looks more closely at the details of the site's organization. Quilcapampa was constructed on the top of the cliff face between two pre-existing trails. The original topography in the Middle Horizon part of the site appears to have been the bluff overlooking the river and a slight saddle, and then the beginning of the rising ridge top led up at the pampa above. The plaza was built on the bluff, while the core structures were draped across the silly saddle. One of the first acts of the Quilcapampa founders was to level the bluff and remove all but the largest stone from the core's surface. They also built retaining walls along portions of the northern and eastern side, so the site defining the roughly triangular patch of land that incorporate both to the core and outlying area. Two trails appear to have fit in the site. The core was built by first laying down walls to define the boundaries of irregular party groups' compounds. The two straight walls that divide these compounds from each other are the best built, most robust walls documented at Quilcapampa, and appear to have been the earliest walls in this part of the site. Wall trenching revealed the two corners of these walls, suggesting that the area to be used for each group was preconceived, although no attempt was made to impose anything like the orthogonal cellular architecture of Piquillacta. Internal architecture about these walls and excavation demonstrate that the plaza facing incorporate the foundations of the walls that divide component 1 and 2. Ceramic associated and radiocarbon date suggested the Middle Horizon date. The compound's internal architecture may postdate the plaza construction, or at least the contours of the plaza appears to have been known before the compounds were complete. The orientation of the internal wall often mimics that of the plaza, with different parts of both the core and outlying area following the orientation of a side of the small wall that defines the plaza boundaries. The reasons behind this shared orientation are unclear. Plazas in the Andes and elsewhere where the space of interaction were social segments could be both defined as momentarily and finite into a single community. Perhaps the shared orientation at Quilcapampa we used to link together inhabitants of particular parts of the core and outlying area, while also reaffirming the difference between these parts, although that is speculative. Evidence for common cells and other links between the core and outlying area, as well as clear distinction in the assemblage of the core's compounds. Those working in Quilcapampa outlying area approach construction in the different manners. Builders worked with the topography, creating a series of narrow residential terraces on the fringe of the site that typically include two rectangular and semi-rectangular structures facing an external patio. The most intriguing feature of Quilcapampa is its irregularity-shaped plaza. As briefly discussed early in the presentation, wall construction, artifact association, shared orientation, and radiocarbon dates suggest that the plaza was built during the Middle Horizon. The shared orientation of the some residential walls with those of the plaza seen in the slides could be viewed as an output of agglutination. The next structure will build play off the footprint of the last structure. Yet neither the sharp difference in orientation across the site nor the effort of override topography to maintain this orientation can be explained as a result of agglutination. Builders instead appear to have used the plaza sites to help signal group affiliation within Quilcapampa. The signaling property led us to explore the possible reason for the plaza's shapes and orientation. The plaza's shapes and irregular hexagonal is unusual for the central Andes, and not other associated settlement is organized around a raised plaza like this one. The plaza's peculiar form is in part dictated by the cliff edge and the two quebradas that run on the either side of the Middle Horizon Quilcapampa. The plaza, no less, was created by leveling the bluff and then defining its exact footprint with a boundary wall that sharply delineated the hexagonal corners. The approximate area to build a plaza was thus approximated by topography and early foot traffic, but the peculiar shape and orientation that the plaza took were malleable. What was the logic behind construct a plaza on an irregular hexagon? We propose two related answers. One possibility is that the plaza shape mimicked the Southern Cross. If we draw a line to connect the northeast and the southwest corners of the plaza, and then a second line to connect the northwest and the southeast corners, a short-sided cross is formed. When the Southern Cross is superimposed on the plaza, the corners of the plaza line up with the location of the four stars, Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta Crucis, that make up the constellation. The Southern Cross is composed of the sum of the brightest stars in the southern hemisphere and is visible from the most locations through the year. These features have made it the important part of the indigenous cosmology in the Andes and many other regions. Inca astronomers distinguish between two types of constellation: a stellar constellation composed of the group of the bright stars, and the dark constellation made up of the condensation of the interstellar gas and dust that appear as dark spots amid the brighter backdrop of the Milky Way. Two of their stellar constellations were the Big and the Little Cross, the Hatun and Hachu Chakana. The latter name refers to the Southern Cross. The pre-Inca celestial observations have been demonstrated with the Gaussian rockets and Stanish and Tantalian, and some Moche construction in particular may have been orientated to the Southern Cross in Sion and Kulkichikon. We don't know whether The constellation was also important to people during the Middle Horizon, but these stars would have been just as bright and ever present in the 9th century as they are today. The nemesis of the Southern Cross, through the location of the plaza four principal corners, could have helped link Quilcapampa founders to Sihuas locals who gaze upon the same sky. Arequipa's snow-clad peaks are visible to someone walking the Pampa trails across the Pacific Piedmont. Three of these peaks are visible just before descending from the Pampa to Quilcapampa. Coropuna, Ambato, and Chachani, although only Ambato remains visible after reaching the plaza itself. The peaks were sacred in the region since at least the later intermediate period, so we wanted to see if the plaza's unique shapes could be related to the location of these mountain peaks. To do so, we extend the longest line connecting opposite corners of the plaza to see if these lines align with any of the mountain peaks visible from the Pampa. These lines pass through Coropuna, Ambato, and Chachani. To test the robustness of this alignment, we worked the plaza through 6 different rotations for each line while maintaining the plaza shapes, essentially aligning and giving line with each of the others to see if the remaining lines were parallel to any of the others in the rotation. For each of the 3 lines, only a full 180 degrees rotation of the plaza form allowed for parallel lines for all the 3 orientations. From this perspective, 18 rotations were made. We only saw full replication of all 3 lines in 3 rotations, each involving the full half rotation of the plaza. This suggests that the shape of the plaza is internally consistent with itself and that there is no other rotation of this shape that will allow the angles of the 3 of these lines to point to the 3 peaks. Although worship of Arequipa snow-cloud peaks for millennia has been suggested, we are not aware of any studies in this part of the Peru that indicate long-distance alignment between settlements and peaks. William and Nash Knowledge argued the architectural alliance at the Wari affiliate site of the Cerro Baul in Moquegua that link prominent view platforms of the site to the snow-cloud peaks of Arondense and Pichu Pichu. Their assertion that political authority was reinforced by placing in the site of the Cerro Baul in a system of values that merge with local perspectives and sacredness and ancestry, may dovetail with the reasoning behind the orientation of Quilcapampa Plaza. The builders of the plaza may have been also been working off more generally held Middle Horizon ideas regarding the need to orientate settlements to peaks and other landscapes, featuring that they themselves deemed important. In the end, this study highlights the way that the architectural studies must engage with the local and the place-based knowledge of sacred landscape features that are integrated within the cultural logic system and cosmological ideologies involving celestial bodies. My work at the Quilcapampa and in collaboration with the directors and the rest of the team was possible by taking a moment to look up at the sky during the day and especially at the night to think through the life experience of past people and ancestral populations who once are raised in this landscape. Thank you so much.